brought to you by Starbucks.
Don't get vanilla.
Yeah, get the mocha next time, not the vanilla.
S'mores is really. You don't like the s'more one?
No, the s'mores is nasty.
That one's so freaking good, dude.
No.
What do you mean?
It's like drinking triple shot. Who the hell wants to drink that shit?
Nah, that s'more stuff is so freaking good. Shrek the Musical is not that bad of a movie. All right, hear me out. All right, it's got good redeeming moments. Shrek actor, super sexy. Like, all of them look good. Donkey, it's a fine ass. I'll tell you that.
They will live on in my video history.
Your video history.
Oh yeah.
Let's just make a blooper reel.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought about doing that as a blooper reel.
Do you have a lot of takeouts you do?
I do, but the thing is that I've had a really bad thing of saving them. But I think with other people, I think it's a lot like.
Well, yeah, because it's more people.
You know, there's more conversation to add to it. All right, conspiracy theories with a thick book.
Triple C thick.
With my special guest star, Noah.
Number one fan.
First subscriber. First special guest.
Don't like all your videos right away. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Not me. That's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with needing a little bit of that.
You see a video, I'm like, oh, Gay posted a video, and then 2 days later, I'm like, I should probably like that before he interrogates me for not liking it.
I don't get on people too much.
You have stolen my phone at least twice to make sure I've liked your newest video. That was a long time ago.
It's like last year.
It's a long time ago.
Okay. Well, we picked out 5. We got 5 conspiracy theories. 2 that Noah picked and 3 that I picked. So, do you want to go first? Or you want me to do mine?
We'll just go straight through.
Straight through? Okay. So the first 3 are mine. First one that I picked on the list was Antarctica. I thought that, I always believed that Antarctica has a bunch of hidden shit under it.
Penguins are taking over.
There's a penguin mausoleum down there with a bunch of temples. Seriously. People who don't believe that, the penguins...
Have you seen Happy Feet?
They used to rule the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They can dance.
With their dance. Okay. Antarctica is the 5th largest continent on the Earth with a total of area of 5.4 million square miles. It is the world of ice where no recorded temperature has ever topped 59 degrees Fahrenheit, and the record low from July 21st to 1983 is negative 129 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite the presence of small research stations, Antarctica is officially uninhabited, but was it always so? Question mark. Dun, dun, dun! In 1959, while performing research at a Library of Congress, Professor Charles Hapgood, Keene College, New Hampshire, discovered a map drawn by Orpheus Phineas in 1531. It pictured Antarctica with rivers and mountains, but without its trademark mile-thick glaciers. A similar map of an ice-free Antarctica was published in 1737 by Philippe Boisch, a member of the French Academy of Science. In fact, Boisch depicted the southernmost continent as 2 great bodies of land divided by water in the same region where the trans-Antarctic mountains are shown on modern maps. Boisch's vision was affirmed in 1958 when modern cartographers revealed that Antarctica is in effect an ice-bound archipelago of large islands. How did mapmakers of 16th and 18th centuries present such a strikingly different picture of Antarctica? Conspiracy theories advanced in the realm typically involved with some variation of ancient astronauts theme, though imitations of a link to the lost city of Atlantis, or the mythic Hollow Earth are also popular. From those beginning theorists generally invoke a global conspiracy of silence masking the truth as they see it about planet Earth, its beginnings, and the origins of humankind.
See, I can get behind the whole thing that there was something before it was all ice. It's very possible.
Oh, for sure.
Very possible.
Especially for over, scientifically, if, we've been around for 50 million years, billion. I'm not even sure.
It's a long time.
Not even sure on that fact. Actually, you know what? I'm going to Google that fact right now.
Anything to happen in a time frame where Antarctica is lush and then just straight up ice and rock.
Facts. Okay.
I'm sure the animals would adapt. That's this difference that you gotta think about is the
evolution. How old is the Earth? 4.5 billion years.
That's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years.
That's a lot of years. How many seconds is that?
What? That doesn't matter.
No, it does not. It's very possible that it was all because Pangea. Mm-hmm. Gotta think about that.
Pangea is always usually the one go to.
I'm sure at some point the whole area was all lush and green. When it broke off, you had to go through different temperature controls. Mm-hmm. So it could have been like just icebergs at top, and then Antarctica moved there. So then it kind of just had to adapt to the.
So like a lower elevation where everything is moving on top of it. That's a good way to think about that. That's possibly.
See, then you gotta think of the animals though, where the like animals that are currently in the area where Antarctica was for Pangea. They were like penguins, but they didn't have feathers because they weren't cold.
True.
They had to adapt to swimming. And like this, what if like the seals were being bullied by the penguins, and then lion seals? Is that what they are?
There's killer whales.
The
orcas,
bullies from Happy Feet, whatever those guys are.
The seals. Yeah.
The seals.
They're like whale seals.
Then they grew up and they're like, we're gonna pick on these black and white birds.
You want to know how I'm gonna make sure you don't eat me? Interpretive dance.
And tap my feet real fast.
Tap my feet. Okay, actually, you know what? We're gonna change it to 6 because Area 51 just popped up, and Area 51 is always a good one. So we're doing 6 with that included.
Before we go back, still with Antarctica though, it's definitely that like deserted. You can hide some shit there. No way countries aren't like. Hiding their cocaine
especially
like there's stuff.
All the countries are just harboring their drugs and their drug money and stuff there in Antarctica. I mean,
it's the space money from South Park.
If technically nobody owns it, why couldn't they?
It's like Greenland. I'm sure that place is full of crap that
people just hide there. Aliens.
Hitler.
Fucking aliens. Hitler. I mean, Hitler. It was always believed that Hitler went to go search for the Hollow Earth. So like he went to Argentina. So then he would go technically through the South Pole of the Hollow Earth. So we already talked about that at one of my last conspiracy theories with Rethwell. So there's the two Earths, or the two holes that are in the axes and stuff like that. Okay, you ready? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Those ancient astronauts, though. Aliens. Okay. Area 51. Everybody knows all about Area 51. We were trying to go raid.
I watched the live stream for the invasion.
We were trying to go watch that we were trying to go raid that shit 2 years ago. Was that 2 years ago?
I think so. I was in health class with my buddy Avery, and we popped it up on the live stream they made. I'm sure it's fake as hell, but it was still hilarious to watch.
You never know. But Area 51 obviously is a super secret U.S. Air Force base at Groom Lake, Nevada, buried at the heart of the Nevada test site 60-odd miles northwest of Las Vegas. It figures promptly that in most conspiracy theories involving unidentified flying objects or UFOs and government suppression of alien technology that was allegedly collected since the Roswell UFO crash of 1947. Unauthorized personnel are strictly banned from the region and are subject to arrest for trespassing. Popular rumors and a dramatic episode of the X-Files TV series suggest that intruders on site are brutally debriefed and may be subject to memory erase treatments prior to their release if in fact they do not simply disappear. The U.S. Air Force spokesperson dismissed such stories as fantasy, noting that Area 51 was a scene of a prolonged testing involving stealth aircraft, a circumstance that may have contributed to local UFO sightings. Interesting. President George W. Bush confirmed that the covert base's sinister reputation for many observers in September of 2002 when he exempted Area 51 from federal environmental legislation that required disclosure of classified information concerning local operations.
See, I can understand if it's just like aircraft, stealth aircrafts. Maybe it was their own thing that crashed and they decided to like tell them, hey,
You don't think that aliens don't exist, though?
I believe aliens exist, but it's definitely like if they're hiding it, you gotta come up with a better name than Area 51.
Yeah.
Call it like Base Winslow. Boom. It's not suspicious anymore. But no, Area 51's a good name to hide this alien stuff. You think people are gonna catch on to that? Nah.
I mean, I don't know, like, it's definitely not unheard of that, like, we aren't still trying to progress our technology, be it if it's either from another sentient human being kind or whatever.
See, here's my thought. We are a smart, intelligent species of a race, but have you seen our species as a race? I'm sure there's aliens that pop by, watch our Netflix series, and they're like, they're a waste of time. No alien would want to come here.
Have you ever watched The First Men in Black?
A long time ago.
Okay. So when he is expressing to Will Smith about why they shouldn't just tell people, is because that the average person is smart, But in a collective group, we're dumb. We panic. We don't know what to think about things.
True.
We start being like, "What do you think? What do you think?" Then everybody just starts.
Just the wrong people.
All of a sudden, we have a whole group of people that are just trying to like figure out like, "Hey, what can I decide about this?" You know, like it's kind of like a.
I believe there's aliens. I just don't think we're harboring. I feel like if you're holding aliens, how long ago was Roswell? Like
1947.
Yeah, like you think that alien stuff is still good? Like they would need new subjects like on the dot.
I mean, unless they like cryo froze.
Or they're pregnant.
Some people do believe that cryo freezing is a thing now.
And I mean, that's not.
They did just patent that. I feel like that was a suicide booth in Switzerland.
With their cryo technology, it's believable. You can do some stuff with that.
Maybe one day. Maybe it's gonna be like Futurama.
Maybe
1,000 years in the future.
Never seen it.
Yeah, Futurama's a pretty smart show. If you'd be surprised. Okay. This one I thought was pretty interesting, considering that we've been playing Assassin's Creed, but it's called the Assassin's Cult. Yeah, it originates pretty much around the same place, around the 11th century in Mossad. You know, that was I'm pretty sure Mossad was in the first game. I want to say.
That was 12th century though for Assassin's.
I mean, it says it ranges. You know, there's a lot of things. It says it ranges from literally the 10th century.
There's an apple in there, then it's true.
The apple of Eden. I'm actually kind of curious if that would actually even be in this one.
I'm sure it's like I don't remember seeing apple of Eden in there. There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff.
I saw Jesus was a one in there.
Oh, of course he is.
So overall Jesus. Well, because like that's a whole other conspiracy. We want to get into that later, but
I mean, you know, it's not that I don't believe that like Jesus wasn't a person.
The way it is if it's based on a religion. So if you believe Jesus is the Messiah, that's the whole thing. But Jesus Christ, just Jesus, was a real person.
Yeah.
He was a real carpenter.
Yeah.
But people believed he was the Messiah back in that time frame, so they crucified him. Now it's just down to your personal belief.
They probably thought he was a witch or something.
They probably did. I'm Christian. I believe Jesus is out there, but I am still open to anything being wrong. I'm opening to waking up in Elysium. And like Zeus is like, yo, what's up, dude? And I'm like, yo, what's up, dude?
You know, and that's the thing is that we wouldn't know until pretty much like nobody knows what happens after death. I mean, there was always that whole flatlining experience that people tried to do. You remember that movie Flatliners? So they like stopped themselves from like pretty much being like of how long they could go into being pretty much like brain dead, but they could only do it in like seconds.
Yeah,
you know, because they could, and the more minutes, the more that they would be like hallucinating or dying or something like that. You know, and so then it's like, I feel if people were to try to experiment with that, I feel like they would kind of have their own sense of like there's either something or there's either nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that's kind of the only thing that you really need to think about when it comes to death. Is because that there's either something or there's nothing, but just because there isn't anything doesn't mean that that's something, you know? It's like
I like to think we're gonna die and wake up, and it's like you just entered part 2. We get to relive the whole entire life again.
And then reincarnation, you know.
It's like a Detroit. Have you ever played Detroit Become Human?
No.
Get this rebranch the whole entire game.
So every time
you die, you just restart and just go back to different branches.
Life is not a video game, no.
That would suck though.
Video game logic, you know, people are like, "Oh, I wish life was a video game." No, you don't. Imagine having lag.
It's like it's lag, and then it's like being able to come back alive. It's true. How excruciatingly annoying do you get playing like Elden Ring when you keep dying and getting angry? But it's real life, where you just keep constantly dying and coming back, and you just don't want to do that.
Go watch Boss Level on Hulu.
Boss Level?
Yeah, it's there's not, I can't remember the main guy that's in it, but it's pretty much the same thing to where it's pretty much like it's like another time loop movie, but they kind of base it like a video game.
It's the Tom Cruise one, right?
Yeah, it's Tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time loop movies.
I just don't think that'd be a fun life, just constantly dying and coming back. Especially since it's a checkpoint, you're gonna keep going back. How long ago was that checkpoint you just saved at? 10 years ago?
I don't remember saving my game. Shit.
10 years ago?
Yeah.
It's every time you wake up, I don't think that's bad, except you have to live with the consciousness of what you just did prior to that save file. But
yeah, well.
Anyways, Assassin's Creed.
At least going back to the video game, the Assassin's Cult. The first agents of the militant Islam in the Middle East were members of a Neo-Islamite sect, formed by Caliph Aman of al-Mustansir and his son Nazar in Egypt, sometime in the mid-11th century. Nizar was driven from Cairo by his rivals at court, finding support among Islamite converts in the mountain of Persia, now Iran. There, while Nizar remained the movement's figurehead, true power resided with Hassan ibn al-Sabah, leader of the Persian Ismailites. In 1090, Hassan's warriors captured the mountain stronghold of Amulet, where Hassan installed himself and soon became known as the Old Man of the Mountain. Alamut, also known as the Eagle's Nest, provided a fortuitous vantage point for observation and interdiction of Christian invaders during the centuries of the Crusades.
The castle they had.
Yeah. That's actually kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
They probably took inspiration.
Well, especially because, I'm sure it's some of it is based on real stuff, but they kind of just like.
Because how crazy is it that people had assassins throughout history? Obviously, every ruler has enemies, so they're gonna need something to kill off their enemies.
Yeah. Like
the Magi for the Pharaohs for Assassin's Creed Origins. Maybe they weren't assassins, but they were still guardians of the Pharaoh.
Well, and the Magi were always the ones that were kept with the most ancient secrets, usually because it's if the Pharaoh ended up having to something happened to the Pharaoh, most of the Magi's usually had to keep most of that shit secret, be it if it either was secret religion or anything that was kept in a crypt or something like that, a magical artifact, if there is technically anything like that back in the day.
Well, currently we have hitmen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We've had hitmen throughout centuries and
now
centuries.
They pulling out hidden blades and talking about apples. No, but you still have hitmen. It's plausible for people to become assassins. Yeah, and
one especially considering that of how bad the Crusades were. That everybody's just screw the Christians. We need to figure out something because they're literally just getting involved in something that they just don't need to be. Which of course as the the war in Jerusalem has carried on, so on and so forth. And now we pretty much just don't really have any involvement. Yeah. But the Crusades definitely were something that they were not too happy about us being there. No. Not at all.
And then us being happy with each other. It's plausible for brotherhoods to exist, but a continuous brotherhood from Egypt all the way to the Americas, it's likely, but of how racist we are, I highly doubt it.
True, but I mean, of course, they could always just if it may be a thing to where it had to be specifically religious sect or race sect.
They could have because they had the colonial brotherhood. Because that was Liam and Shay and Rogue Games, and then Connor later on. And then they had the Egyptians. They had the Greek wasn't really assassins. They were more just talking about the.
Well, and then of course
East side of that.
Later in the game, later in the games they started integrating a lot more of the mythos. So then later on, we're learning more about the mythology rather than we were just more about
it was more about
battle between Templars and.
It was more about the.
Assassins.
Isu hybrids. Yeah. It was about the human god Isu. Combined.
Yeah. Okay, but continuing. According to Marco Polo, who visited Alamut in 1271, the stronghold included fabulous gardens occupied by lovely women who the reigning cult leaders used to good advantage. Simply put, cult members would be drugged with hashish and then carried into the gardens, where they woke among nubile beauties, even indeed beauties, who were willing to satisfy any sexual demand. After they drugged a second time, the soldiers found themselves back at Alamut, where the old man informed them that they had been granted a glimpse of paradise, the very afterlife awaiting any disciple who died in the service of Allah. So emboldened, the assassins from Hashashim, users of the hashish, feared no danger when they were dispatched to kill targets chosen by their leader. Many of the victims were crusaders, but rival Muslim leaders also fell before the cult's onslaught, and the assassins also served as military contract killers if the price was right. By the late 11th century, the cult had outposts in Syria and had converted the Prince of Aleppo, Ridwan ibn Tutush, and then by 1140, assassins had captured mountain fortresses throughout northern Syria, which including Masad, Al-Kaf, Al-Kadmus, and Al-Ulaika, where Christian invaders failed to curb the cult, and then Mongol invaders finally succeeded routing the assassins from Masad in 1260. 12 years later, the Malamuk Sultan Baibars dealt the cult a final blow with mass arrests and executions. Still, some members of the sect reportedly escaped to India, where they may have resurfaced thugs in the 13th century. Interesting. So pretty much Genghis Khan was you guys ain't doing shit. I mean, of course, I can't really remember when Genghis Khan was leader of the Mongols. I mean, it's got to be around the same time frame, I'd say. Or probably a couple hundred years later. Because I think he was about 1500s, maybe. But crazy.
It does go, too, because back to the games, like, usually when you're, like, this, if you look at the timeline of it, it's literally, like, Africa in the Middle East, and it just, like, stays there for a long portion. Because even in Odyssey, the DLC, the first ever, like, assassin, I'm pretty sure the first ever assassin was Persian, who assassinated Xerxes, and then, like, it moved to the Egyptians, and then it moved to the people of the Islam, Israel, like, that whole Jerusalem, that whole entire place in the Middle East. So, and then it branched out eventually to the colonies in Europe, because then you had Ezio in Italy, like, it branched, but that was, like, however it is far from the Crusades to the Italian Renaissance.
I mean, the Crusades went on for a good 300 years,
Yeah.
I want to say. Probably less than that.
It's just whenever.
But then, of course, like, I mean, technically, it's not like they didn't still continue on. But then, of course, like, any of the King Richard and all them who were around that time probably just gave up. Then I'm sure they probably decided that it wasn't really worth it. But I don't know. The religion aspects when it comes to regions is really hard to kind of, I want to say, like, I guess, understand.
Especially when a big portion is one religion and then they start branching out later on.
Yeah. I mean, but who knows? Maybe maybe one day freaking most of the people will get along and that'll stop, hopefully. But of course, war will continue on. As
War never changes.
Yeah, war never changes, exactly. Was that 3 already?
Yeah, Area 51, Antarctica, and Assassin's Cult.
Oh, I feel like I had another one saved. Oh, I think I see it. Maybe not. All right. You want to do yours? You want me to keep going?
There is another one I wanted to see if we can find in here or not, but I will start going with mine. So, it's this little Chernobyl. It is. All right.
Chernobyl.
Chernobyls.
I'm ready to listen.
So the Chernobyl disaster occurred on April 26th in 1986, where cooling systems failed the Chernobyl nuclear reactor, 50 miles north of Kiev in the Soviet Ukraine. As described in subsequent reports, a series of technical errors caused water to run low and overheat in various cooling components, creating an explosion that shattered the reactor's 1,000-ton lid, set fire to the facility, and unleashed a deadly cloud of radioactive fallout on the surrounding countryside. For weeks thereafter, helicopters fought the fire by dumping sand and lead into the shattered reactor. A second major blaze erupted on May 23rd, requiring further desperate efforts. Meanwhile, radiation spread throughout Ukraine and across much of Europe. Did not know it traveled that far.
Radiation travels a long way.
It does go a long way. It's guess it's a big reactor too.
That too.
The Chernobyl body count may never be known. Russian authorities did not acknowledge the disaster until April 28th, so 2 days later after it happened, when monitors at a power plant in Sweden detected large doses of radiation in the air and suspected a leak at their own facility. Within 36 hours of the explosion, 300 persons were treated for serious radiation sickness. More than 100,000 were evacuated from their homes. In 1991, the Canadian Broadcasting System claimed 10,000 to 15,000 immediate deaths. Various sources projected long-term losses from cancer and other diseases, ranging as high as 125,000. Apologists for the nuclear industry, meanwhile, claim that only 48 people died, with an additional 800 cases of thyroid cancer reported in children.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Chernobyl conspiracy theories do not concern the incident's death toll, however, but rather Russian claims that it was accidental, which is where the theory comes in. The Soviet Union's collapse in 1991 had done nothing to mollify lifelong anti-communists who believe that Russian commissars, I'm sure that's how you say it, still plot world domination on behalf of a slightly revised evil empire. So one internet website summarizes the case, noting that rather profound connections Chernobyl had to astrology and biblical prophecy. And then it's a little subsection. The Chernobyl disaster in Soviet Ukraine was no accident. To the contrary, it was a sick, intentional experiment conducted by the former communist government in Moscow to garner knowledge about the effects of radioactive contamination. For what reason? To prepare to fight and survive a global nuclear war. The clincher in that view is Kosovinsky Mountain, an underground control and command center similar to those scattered throughout the U.S. that Russian authorities constructed in 1996. Why would this be so, the conspiracist asks? unless the Kremlin is planning to fight a nuclear war. This is also could look at communism.
That kind of seems very like very westernized a little bit.
Very,
you know.
Very.
And of course, you know, it's like that's
it's definitely like because they want to fight. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because that's the red. That's around Cold War time, right? 80s.
Yeah,
a little bit after maybe.
Because the Berlin Wall didn't fall until about early 90s, I want to say.
So it's definitely that time frame. We're probably like cooling down a little bit more, but they're still scared of that whole thing.
Well,
Which, yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's
like,
yeah.
It kind of gives people to where, like, it kind of makes you think that it's like maybe it was just a reason for us to kind of give Russia a little bit of like a blame. You know, like the entire disaster, you know, is like, as it says, it's beyond something that it's like nobody's really willing to understand. You know, and like I always think about these things too, is that it's like, you know, like, yeah, I mean, there are always casualties in war when it comes to sacrificing, you know, people in your some parts of your country and stuff like that. But it's even the same thing too. Like if we were to consistently, like, if we or they or anybody else would pretty much just like to start nuking random plates, you know, or random places with a bunch of radiation spots, like what good does that help them to have land that is like completely destroyed by radiation that won't be fixed for like
if it's just like that's
years.
It's like, are you trying to take out the enemy or are you trying to claim the enemy's land? Because if
Yeah.
you're trying to take them out, then just blow them up.
But I mean even with that, like even at a world scale, you know, like that radiation will go half planet, you know, like that.
See, because it depends where you spot. If they decided to, if like anybody over there tries to bomb us, if like we have two countries that are close by, Canada and Mexico. So if you do the middle, you're more likely ruining us. But if you start hitting the edges, you got to start worrying about contaminating the other countries and getting on their asses.
On their bad side too.
If we, you know, Europe is like so clam-packed that if we bomb a single place, it's more than likely hitting a lot of other countries. You're not just hurting the enemy. It's like you're hurting so many more innocent people that have nothing to do with the war.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
you know,
like,
and that's the one thing that's always double-sided about war is that we never know. You know, like our media is completely different than their media. What they understand of us is completely what we understand of them. You know, so that it's all continuously biased and that nobody will really know until shit hits the fan. You know, and then when it comes to Chernobyl, it's like I don't really see that really kind of being like a whole like experiment thing.
It's kind of like
but I have heard of Chernobyl being considered because like considering of where Chernobyl is, you know, it's very isolated.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much kind of like how like Area 51 or like the area in Nevada where they test atomic bombs and stuff like that. You know, is that it's like it wouldn't surprise me. And it's like people who live there probably knew that it was going on.
Yeah, because that is true. It's not just the reactor; it's a village too. Yeah. There were people living there.
There's a whole entire town there. So it's like they either knew that like they were used for something, or regardless that they were just like, you know, because of the advances that we're trying to do in technology, and even in the late 60s to 70s to 80s, you know, that it's like when it comes to nuclear power, that is something that we like depend on. Because obviously, you know, years later, you know, we get wind energy, we get solar energy, we get all these other types of like what we can convert into energy. But nuclear power is still something that we were, not just us, but everyone else was also very heavily used on. You know, and even if you go think about the flood in the Fukushima plant, you know, in Japan, you know, is that it's like there's always at least some nuclear places that are in almost every place that everybody is trying to figure out something of how to use it still. People are trying to go against it being able to use nuclear power, but I mean, I definitely don't want to think that like nuclear power is something that everybody should really be trying to go to, considering that we can't contain anything that advanced yet.
We need that Mako energy.
Okay, yeah. So like, so technically, everybody who runs the nuclear power plants are run by Shinra.
Yep, no, it's a Shinra.
It's a Shinra game.
See, and then it's like, it's possible. You know, anything's possible. It could have been like a planned accident, but it's always to the possible point. It's like it was like an accident for the scale of what it was. It was just supposed to be like a minor explosion, and then it turned into a big boomy boy.
Big boomy boy.
Big boomy boy, and then they started hurting, and then they're kind of like, well, shit.
You know, and that's the whole thing about like, you know, like that's the whole thing that I like about conspiracy theories. It's not just because I believe that half of these are true. It just really makes you think about what other possibilities that you could think about that aren't just that. And like the one thing that really pisses me off about some of these things is that it always seems to where they always want to like target a regime of some sort.
Yeah.
Be it either America, be it either Russia, or any other regime, so to speak. Is that it's always kind of seemed like it always has to poke at the government a little bit. You know, so I never really understood about like why like it really always had to be that way of like always having to bring it in. But considering about where the time frame of, as you said, that it's around the Cold War, is like that makes
it's
sense.
enough yellow journalism to try and put the blame and like they're trying to take us over.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can see what you mean with that because I had every Wednesday for this year we have FOPs. It's just like just a little fun thing we get to do. And one of them was with my social studies teacher. We did conspiracy theories too, and then two of them were Pearl Harbor, which is like it's more or less like was it planned. Which I don't agree with. I think it's more or less they knew about an attack, and they just let it slide because they didn't think. They were like, they're not going to do it. Why would Japan bomb us? They're just trying to throw us into the war. They're not going to do it.
They're thinking that they're just going to fondle our balls
They think they're just not going to do it. Yeah, no. And then they bombed it. And then the conspiracy is like, what if they planned it so that it's a way to get people into the war? It's like, that's a smart strategy if you want to get into the war, but more or less, I think it's more of like they used it to get into the war because they're like, well, shit, we just got bombed. Mm-hmm. But we can now use this to make everybody rally to our side and get on the war. Because my teacher mentions, like, you're risking a lot because that's the major fuel depot. And they risked, if they was planned, they risked a lot. Because if one thing went, like, wrong, the whole entire thing could have been blown up and we'd have nothing left.
Yeah.
And then the other one was 9/11. Planned. And it's like, there's this bunch of, like, messages that don't add up. Like, these calls seem like they're coming from in the building, but, like, how would you not know? And then that's to the point of, are you really going to be the douchebag? That's like, it was planned. Tell that to the innocent families that have dead relatives and people who died at that attack.
I mean, you know, like, there's always this sympathy that you have to show when it comes to stuff like
you
that,
cannot
you know,
brutally
like,
be like...
For when it comes to even, like, the Chernobyl, you know, is that it's, like, obviously is that it's, like, we're not just thinking that it's just, like, you know, screw the people that like, lost their lives. You know, it's just, like, I just kind of feel like some people would, like, be willing to, like, you know, like, shit, like, my family died in this thing. Like, I would want to know, like, all the odds and ends about what could possibly happen than just besides, like, this happened, that's the way. But, like, was it, though?
Yeah.
You know? But no, I think that was a really good one. That was actually, I mean, especially because, like, I just seen something about Chernobyl in the news the other day. I don't really remember what it was, nor do I really care. But, I mean, it's kind of relevant, so I think that really helps. Yeah. On to the next one.
You said you had one more after this?
Well, I mean...
Didn't you say you had another one?
I can't remember. I thought I had another one.
Okay.
I lost the card, though, so...
Take a little break real quick. I want to see if he's in here or not. It's a person. Let's see if it's just...
A person?
It's a person.
What's his name?
It starts with an R.
Rick Tolfin?
No. Rasputin.
Oh, Rasputin. Okay. I'm down for that.
We'll get to that. I watched Kingsman.
Okay.
Yeah. We also were just talking about the Russian Revolution, and he brings it up in that. On to one of my favorite conspiracies of all times. I get so giddy with this. It's the most morbid thing on the planet, but I love it so much, and that's Jack the Ripper.
I do know that.
He's one of my most, like, favorite is always such a weird word to say, because that's so screwed up to say. My favorite mystery serial killer, just because it's, like, at the time frame, he's infamous, he's at large, and it's the whole conspiracy to that. But I'll start reading. Arguably the most infamous serial killer of all time, London's Jack the Ripper murdered and mutilated at least 5 hard-luck prostitutes. Some place the tally higher. The autumns of 1888. The stalker got his nickname from the signature appended to various taunting letters mailed to police and press, most, or all, of which are now considered fakes, written by kooks or headline-hungry journalists. After his last confirmed murder, the victim of Mary Kelly, on November 9th, the Ripper packed away his knife and left historians to speculate to his identity. It is the mystery that makes Jack so intriguing, with new books and articles about his crimes being published every year. Inevitably, conspiracy theories have grown up around London's notorious boogeyman. The first proposed in 1928 claimed that the Ripper was a Russian doctor, one Alexander Pedachenko, who committed the murders in league with the Tsarist secret police as a form of anti-British terrorism. No solid evidence supports the case, and Pedachenko is now generally dismissed as a viable suspect. The next Ripper plot advanced in 1962, which involves a royal conspiracy of silence. In this scenario, Jack was Prince Albert Victor Christian Edward, Duke of Clarence, that's a big-ass title, and heir presumptive to the throne of England. Driven mad by syphilis or homosexuality, theories differ. The would-be king allegedly ran amok in London, whereupon his family buried the evidence and consigned him to a sanitarium, where he died in 1892. There are at least 4 major problems with this theory. First, no evidence exists linking Prince Eddie to the murders. That was his nickname. There's likewise no proof that he suffered from syphilis, and while he may in fact have been gay, that argues against his guilt since gay serial killers typically target same-sex victims. Finally, official records show that Eddie was far from London on the dates of all 5 Ripper homicides, though one would expect nothing less from a royal cover-up. A variation of the Eddie theme proposed by forensic psychiatrist David Abrahamson in 1992 has the prince joining a homicidal tag team with his alleged gay lover, supposed woman hater James K. Stephen. Stephen alone is also named as the Ripper by other researchers. Abrahamson claimed that files obtained from Scotland Yard portray Edward and Stephen as the killers, yet London police denied providing Abrahamson with any such material. Another cover-up? Abrahamson's account is also rife with historical errors, and once again, no concrete evidence has surfaced linking either suspect to the crimes. The mother of all Jack conspiracy theories was floated by author Stephen Knight in 1976. According to Knight, Prince Edward, no longer gay, secretly married a Catholic commoner named Annie Crook and fathered a child by her before the royal family intervened, discovering the prince's faux pass. High-ranking members of the British government moved to clean up the scandal, clapping Annie Crook into a lunatic asylum and murdering the 5 prostitutes who witnessed the illicit marriage. So they're witnesses to the whole thing going on. Those murders were allegedly performed by a 3-man team, including Sir William Gold, physician in ordinary to the Queen, artist Walter Sickert, and the coachman John Netley. All 3 killers were Freemasons, as were the police who covered up their crimes, and the victims were disemboweled in accordance with Masonic ritual. Knight's Tale was a sensation in its day, and it's inspired the Sherlock Holmes film Murder by Decree. But it's full of gaping holes. First, Dr. Gold was 72 years old when Jack applied his blade and was partially disabled by the first in a series of strokes that would finally kill him in 1890. Further, Knight based most of his anti-Masonic revelations on the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a notorious forgery concocted by Russian agents to vilify Jews. How Knight shifted the focus on the protocols from Jews to the Masonic Lodge is not explained. Further prevailing law in England at the time permitted the Queen to nullify any marriage between a British heir and a member of the Catholic Church. This were not sufficient to defuse the plot. Research revealed in 1988 that Annie Crook was not a Catholic, but rather a loyal Anglican from birth. A curious footnote to the Knight Masonic plot surfaced in 2002 when mystery novelist Patricia Cornwell named Walter Sickert, minus Gold and Netley, as the Ripper in her final solution to the case. Sadly, as in the many other efforts to reveal Jack's true identity, the Cornwell opus was long on speculation and fatally short on evidence.
So it literally either goes to where it's either somebody who is part of the royal family around that time.
Yeah, or it's the first one who was... terrorist.
Oh yeah,
it's either terrorism
because they
or
thought it was like a Russian terrorist.
It was a plot as a Russian terrorist for the government of Britain, or it was because of the royalty.
Interesting.
Which I've heard, like, I watched a whole video on this. There's like other 5 suspects. They were more or less just like going to the point of like, at this point in time, you gotta know the human body in order to like do what he did. So they were like butchers, scientists, doctors, yep. Like they were all that stuff. But I think like the biggest one is like this kind of movement of like things. It could easily be one person or it could be a group of people taking on, because like it was like Spartacus where everyone's saying they're Jack, whether or not it's for like I am the Ripper, it's like a thing, or if they're actually trying to take credit for it. You just don't know.
So like a serial cult.
Yeah.
To where like they just have like a
they were all just it's like a following. It's like Riddler from the Batman.
Okay.
Which is really great movie.
Yeah.
where he has a massive following, and like they're all trying to claim his credit, or they're trying to work together, kind of.
See, but that's not unheard of, though. You know,
it's not
like,
unheard of.
Even nowadays, you know, Slenderman.
Mm-hmm.
People are all about that whole like for some reason they always have it to where it's directed towards younger girls.
Yeah.
Which I never really understood that, because it's like that just kind of seems like misogynist,
mm-hmm.
you know, just a little
mm-hmm.
bit. So I really wouldn't understand that, but it's not like that's unheard of for like a cult following like that. You know, like there's cults are everywhere. Cults
mm-hmm.
believe in everything. You know, look at the cult of Cthulhu, for example. You know, that stuff's crazy.
Squidward tentacles is gonna kill us all.
Yeah.
This clarinet playing.
Yeah. With his clarinet playing, yeah.
See, and then it's back to like, because we got government, we got just like cult, and then we can go religious with this, because its victims are prostitutes.
Yeah.
Which is that's sinful. That's unholy.
Especially
You're selling your body.
Still.
So is he like an angel? Is he like pulling Azrael? Is he an angel of death trying to fix the crimes of prostitutes? Is he trying to do God's work and kill them?
Most serial killers usually have that way of thinking, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're
either
thinking that they're doing judgment or God's work.
They're bringing revelation to the sinners of
mm-hmm.
God.
I don't know. Jack the Ripper's always a good one. Because
See, and then it's at the time frame too. They didn't have anything good for what we do nowadays for autopsies, forensics. Yep. He like literally like stabbed their vaginas. He like brutalized them. I like cut off their fingerprints, stabbed their face, bashed it so much you couldn't see them.
There was
literally like disemboweled their bodies.
Yeah.
Like he was so brutal with it, to the point that even if they could get the slightest evidence, it was at the time where nothing would matter.
Did you watch that Johnny Depp movie that involves him with searching for Jack the Ripper?
I did not see that one, no.
I want to say it's Johnny Depp. From Hell.
From Hell?
From Hell. This movie, I watched this movie. This movie's actually really, really good, because it kind of incorporates kind of the most of the things that you talked about, because they're, you know, they bring in the prostitutes. But then there is also, I feel like I want to say like there was some like theory about how they thought it was tied to one of the royalty,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's how they go with it at the end of the movie, but I'm not sure, because you do actually end up figuring out in the movie who the version is for that one,
but they don't actually.
But obviously nobody really knows if that's the true thing.
Obviously,
not,
it's Jim Gordon from the Batman movie.
Actually, I want to say it was actually Ian Holm. Yeah, the guy who played Bilbo. Yeah, he was the guy that they caught, and he ended up becoming like he was like some doctor or like.
Yeah, it's just coming down to when you know about the body. It's such an open case, and
it's to this day.
He's probably still alive.
It's the same thing for the Zodiac Killer. You know, is that it's like people think that we caught the Zodiac Killer.
He's on his deathbed going,
yeah,
that's me.
Yeah,
got him.
I was saying like, and then, or like Lee Harvey Oswald with John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because apparently they released something to where apparently the only reason why they were trying to cover up the JFK assassination was because one of his Secret Serviceman actually was the one that domed him, because they were trying to shoot from behind him and they shot him instead.
Oh, and I was like, friendly fire was on.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, they turned on friendly fire. No, that was a good one.
Because that goes into that, because like if you look at the camera angles, they bring up like the way the bullet registered from where they saw it, like it was there, and then it came from an angle instead.
But they say that there's like 3 to 5 shots.
It could be it could
one
be
from that way,
yeah.
and here, like even
the
in
curved
front of
bullet.
him. You know, some people believe that there was some wanted person that was like.
It was Jacqueline Kennedy just pulled a gun underneath her. Never thought about that. So it's always the wife.
Maybe it was Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Monroe. Wasn't that who it was?
Marilyn Monroe, yeah.
Marilyn Manson's the artist, right?
Yeah. Marilyn Manson is the band guy.
The band dude.
He's a nice guy. So, even though he looks a little weird, but he's a nice guy.
He's a nice dude. All right,
last one. Rasputin.
Tsarist Russia's most notorious holy man was born Grigory Yefimovich Nevik, a son of Siberian peasants in 1872. Don't take my credit for that pronunciation. Illiterate throughout his life, he enjoyed a religious conversion at age 18 and joined the Kilisti sect, a cult convinced that communion with God was best achieved during marathon bouts of sexual intercourse. Enthralled by the doctrine, Nevik promptly changed his surname to Rasputin. debauched one in Russian, and embarked on a quest for further enlightenment that carried him through Greece and Jerusalem. Back in St. Petersburg by 1905, Rasputin won an introduction to Tsar Nicholas and Tsarina Alexandra, and somehow persuaded them that he alone could heal their hemophilic son Alexis. A fringe benefit of his presence in the royal court was Rasputin's abrupt discovery that wealthy women could be healed by any ailment by a tumble in his bed. Tsar Nikolaus, initially disgusted by Rasputin's semi-public access, banished the mad monk from court, but Alexandra demanded his return and cherished his advice so zealously that some critics suspected Rasputin of dictating royal policy. The problem came to head in 1916, midway through World War I, when Nikolaus declared his intent to take personal command of Russia's failing army. Convinced that Rasputin's nefarious influence would soon propel matters from bad to worse, a clique of military officers led by Felix Yusupov plotted the monk's assassination as a means of rescuing the monarchy. The plotters struck on December 29, 1916, when Yusupov invited Rasputin to dine at his home. There, poisoned cake and wine failed to drop Rasputin in his tracks, so Yusupov drew a pistol and shot his victim at close range.
Oh, yeah.
After collapsing briefly to the floor, Rasputin rose again and lurched into the garden where conspirator Vladimir Pershevkovich met him with a second burst of pistol fire, noting that the monk still lived. The would-be killers pushed his body through an ice hole on the Neva River, where Rasputin finally drowned. Sadly for Nikolaus and Alexandra, Rasputin's exit came too late to save them from the wrath of revolutionaries led by Vladimir Lenin.
Okay, it's funny that you actually continued reading that, because after you started going on with that whole heal her because of sex, I was like, okay, I do remember this, because they tried drugging him. They shot
poisoned
him,
and then he literally ate it all, and he's like, that was pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is this guy on?
They literally almost beat that guy to a pulp.
They shot him once. I'm pretty sure at close range they probably domed him, or they tried to, and got his face, they got his chest, and then he literally got back up, went to the garden where he got shot again and was still alive, so they had to drown him.
Yep.
And that's
see, it's funny because it's when they you never know if it could be maybe just how we were talking about when it came to earlier when we were talking about religious secrets, is that it's for he's a monk, he pretty much the entire time of his life, of course some people that believe that monks shouldn't have sex, but I mean of course that it doesn't.
There's a cult that says that to get close to God is to have sex,
that is also relatable and a couple other things that I can't think of, but him finding his own way, it's kind of just one of those things, is magic real, that's kind of the whole thing, and that they kind of throwing in is magical interpretation, or what do they call it with religion when spiritual healers, stuff like that, where they can
clerics,
clerics, they can heal somebody just by the touch, or by the look in their eyes.
See, we were talking about Russian Revolution, and Rasputin popped up, and then he was a healer, and then he made a joke he probably just took away the antibiotics the kid was on, because that was probably making it worse, because it's Russia at the time, their medicine probably wasn't good, and he literally just popped him off. He's he's healed, and the kid just stopped, because hemophilic literally means he was constantly bleeding, and literally he just took his medication away. He's healed. But, the kid stopped, and so it's literally just, he must have, done something, because the kid just stopped bleeding. But then, the other conspiracies are, if he was actually more or less trying to get to the government, or if he was literally just a sex-craved monk that was trying to get close to God. And then it even mentions here, it's Nikolaus was literally nope, we cannot trust this dude. And Alexander's I mean, I think we should keep him. So it's is there an affair going on?
It could be. Or it could be the whole thing to where, how most governments will kind of go to they believe that government and religion should be together. Game of Thrones kind of did this whole thing. That's the only interpretation I can think of. But,
even real life,
it makes a pillar, to where God and the government are together, which, of course, not a lot of people believe that. I don't really think that religion should be involved in that.
Big thing back in Roman times when, literally it was, the Pope had all the power, and, they could control it under God's will.
So maybe around that time frame, maybe that's what they thought. And that especially considering that the Tsar's wife, was just I'm pretty much fucking dying over here, so it's why not try pretty much anything?
Yeah.
People are willing to be able to try even the most craziest aspects, So if you actually found found a person. I want to see if I can find.
It's actually.
Malcolm X is literally the only one in the X section.
Who are you looking for?
I wanted to see if they had Vladimir in here.
Vladimir Lenin?
No, the poker. Like Dracula.
Oh.
Yeah. Vlad the Impaler. They're when it, like, that's kind of more of like a mythos, like kind of conspiracy theory, I guess. You know, like when it comes to like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, so on and so forth.
Well, because like we also just talked about this. I don't even think it was history. I think we just talked about it somewhere else. During a time frame, people who didn't understand the way bodies were under, like how they went and stuff, and literally it was like, they had a crazy phase where they would go through like graveyards. They would dig up bodies, cut their heads off, stab them with stakes just because they were looking blue because they thought that was the sign of a vampire. It was literally today.
That's weird. Or
Forensic science. We would talk about that because it was like the first like autopsy kind of thing they did, where like they didn't understand anything going on at all, and this is the vampire craze, the witch craze. So like I don't know if there was like witches were like resurrecting the dead, making vampires, but they literally were so scared that they would like anything that looked weird because they didn't know blue meant like just like discoloration in your body after death. So they would go dig up graves, stake them in the heart, cut their heads off, make it so they can never come back and do anything. They were that like.
Well, I mean, there was
scared.
even that one point.
Is the witch trials on there? Did you see that the witch trials were there?
Salem witch trials. That's a good one. I guess I didn't even think about that one.
Because the witch trials are always a good one. Because that's also like a misogyny kind of point of view, to the point where it's the time frame of if a woman is any kind of form of intelligent, something is going on and it's weird.
Wyoming.
Yeah, they have a lot of just different places there. Like Zimbabwe was listed.
Okay, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Interesting.
I saw that one popped up. Yeah.
Satanism. Savings and loan scandal. They don't have anything like that.
I guess we'll just have to talk about it.
I don't know. They got a lot of crazy shit in here. You know, I mean, like, there might have to be a couple of them where we might have to just, you know, like, there's always time that we can always do plenty more. You know, just make sure that we never do the same ones, so that we can make sure to keep talking about it more.
Yeah, I guess we'll just mix the vampires and the witch trials then.
We probably have to do some self-looking on that one.
We do, but it's literally just like the broadest example you can think of. It's literally just like men thinking, why are these women smart? Like, we literally have provided no way for them to get smart, and they're doing stuff. They must be witches.
I know how to read.
I can read. Witch. I saw that one. It's like, so this dude I follow on TikTok, he made a skit, and he's literally just like, oh yeah, oh I read that. Yeah, it's. You what? I read. Someone told me about it. Okay.
That's funny.
Okay. Hey, what's this say? 24? You can do math too? Is that how this goes? Witch! And they're all just like charging at her. It's literally like just that point in time where women had to be dumb and just do what they're told. So it's just like, I don't know how they got witch from that, but yeah.
I mean,
especially because like,
well, let's see here.
Have you seen?
That was around the time when the Black Plague was a big thing, wasn't it?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I want to say so. Salem witch trials might be a little after that, but the Black Plague, was around for a long time though. You know, so and that's when the Black Plague started. That was when a lot of crazy shit started. Like, a lot of people started thinking really crazy and stuff like that, because like they would think that just like any town that like actually wasn't affected by the plague, they must be a bunch of witches, or like they're a bunch of sorcerers, or like undead necrophilic. See,
and then the worst. Have you seen the Anya Taylor-Joy, The Witch? No, it's literally it's a good movie. I watched it. I'm surprised I watched it. Horror movies don't flip well, must tell me. But literally, it's like they're kicked out because I think they're suspected of the daughter of being a witch, or their family's just cursed. And so then they kind of like isolate themselves, isolation in the woods. And then so one day, like literally, it's like a terrible strange of events where it's like you're supposed to think it's not a witch. It's not her fault, but her like little brother's kidnapped by a witch in the woods. It's just an old lady in the woods, but maybe it's a witch. You don't know. Baby's dead. The daughter was watching it. Parents blame the daughter. They look over it though. They're like, you didn't directly do anything. It's not your fault. And then later on in the movie, the son, depraved young girl is going through his puberty, starts looking at his sister, like, and then so they start thinking, you're tempting my son, and because he's a sexually depraved teenager. But then later on, they like start doing like an exorcist kind of thing, and something goes down. So then you back into that. Okay, is there a whole witch thing going on?
So it's constantly like teasing.
It's constantly like, is she a witch? Is she not? Is there a witch involved? Is there not? And so then
what movie was this again?
I think it's just called The Witch.
But is the W like...
It looks like
two V's?
Yeah.
Okay, I have that saved. I never watched it, though.
It's a good movie. Huh. And then it's literally this later on then. It's just now it all goes down to the point where she's like, screw it. I'm a witch now! And she sells her soul the same. And it's like, okay, so...
She was then.
She wasn't. It's
but
just that Satan was looking at her like, you'd be a good member to have. Because they had like they literally had a possessed goat. That, like, cool as death ever, runs into her father full force, just, like, stabs him and throws him back, and then stabs him again into a woodpile, and the woodpile falls on him and kills him.
I mean...
It's very, like, it's also got, like, a really nice camera angle. It's, like, it's a very beautiful movie. Nice, well-directed. But it's, like, the thought process of having to live in fear of your own daughter, of being a witch. Obviously, maybe the witches are real. I've never seen it happen before. Never talked to a girl before. I'm kidding. But literally, it's like, that must suck having to live in that and being the child of having your own parents afraid of you for witchcraft.
Oh, yeah. I could not imagine how that really would be at all.
Like, and then it goes down to really religious families. You have sex, Satan's in you, get the hell out. Like,
you're definitely a witch.
Literally, not even a witch, you just follow Satan. Or you're just a sinner.
Well, and it's like because and that's the thing that they always kind of like love to really like mix when it comes to stuff like that, is that they always have to mix it to where it's like you're a sinner, so you're either just the devil or you're a witch. Yeah. It's like it's either one of the two. Like I mean, like or both, I guess, if they really want to go that way. But I mean, yeah, I could not really imagine having to kind of have to like fear my own daughter of like. Casting a spell on me or something like that. Because it's literally when I would be using that to my advantage. I'd be like, "Hey, honey, the neighbor hasn't given me my lawnmower back. Can you please tell him? Can you please like do something?
Do some twiddle fingers.
Yeah, some twiddle fingers. Like, bam, Dad.
Agatha All Along song plays.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely
weird.
Whack times to live.
Every century is a whack time.
Everyone's like, I want to go back in time. I want to go forward in time. Yeah. Screw that.
Yeah, we don't need to learn on our mistakes. We need to know how we're gonna fix them.
So, yeah, that's just.
But I mean, did you have fun?
I had fun.
That's good. It was fun. I'm glad that you had fun. Conspiracy theories are kind of always like the whole thing about it, to where it's like I don't expect people to believe them. These aren't real. And I even like. Conspiracy theories are even a conspiracy theory because they think that they just incorporated conspiracy theories to actually like
they kind of build off of each other.
Well, that too, but it's like they believe that they were created to either like interpret it to like keep us busy, to constantly question,
to like throw us off,
in a good way or a bad way, because it's like it introduces us to be able to question everything that we know, but at the same time is that it's like. It's also a bad thing because we have to question everything we know. Instead of going one way or the other way or possibly a third way, there's like 7 other branches that you can build off of what you think might be going on. Which, of course, that's how everybody thinks, and it's a good way to be able to think about that because everybody's opinionated about whatever it may be. Everything's a conspiracy theory.
See, and then like... I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, but I'm always like a big fan of like the multiverse. Have you ever heard like tree branch theory, where like something you do is like split decisions that it keeps going off? Like
every decision that you
want
make,
a Pop-Tart, you want toaster strudels.
Because it's like everything that you like you're on based on one line, and so then every decision you come across branches,
and then each one branches,
and then it keeps going and going and going. Yeah, I've heard about that. That's why some people say to not like don't make too many decisions.
Yeah,
just like. Pick one or pick one that you know that you want and just keep going. Don't pick like, do I want the green shirt or do I want the red shirt? You just be like, I like that one more, so I'm gonna take it. But yeah, I've heard of that one. And
I like tree branch theory. It's a nice one.
That one can get a little hectic.
That can get a little hectic.
Just because it's like how many things down the line do you like? It seems like it's also like a way of like you have to look on every step you take to where it's just like, oh, we're telling you that you need to stop making decisions, but you still need to make.
Yeah, because you can't just like.
Now you need to think really hard.
You can't
on
just
this decision.
like not decide. Screw it, because it's basically telling you like every decision matters. And you start overthinking every decision, and like, okay, don't overthink it, but think hard about it. It's like then your brain's just like, wait, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's even the way of how like kind of like anxiety has kind of taken over. You know, like a lot of people have anxiety now, and it's either because people think that they have anxiety, or it's a way of because of how we've pretty much just kept going for our human race, that anxiety has just increased tenfold to where everybody pretty much has it, regardless if they think that they don't have it or not. You know,
definitely like it's like labels too. Like we should stop labeling things, because like I say I'm anxious, and I was like I got moments.
Well, see,
but I won't say anxious.
Yeah, like
I'm nervous.
Like, you know, it's like, oh, I have some anxiety, or like, oh, I'm like I really have like anxiety. You know, and I mean it also kind of seems like an excuse in a way too. To where it's just like, are you really just saying that you have anxiety just so that you can just be like...
Yeah, I'm colorblind, you know? So like...
colorblind and barely two colors.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. So yeah, I hope you can come back again. We can do another one.
Yeah. But like witches, not real. Oh, yeah, they're not real. Never heard of that.
What was with the whole Buddha thing? the Buddha rays? But, alright, I hope everybody has enjoyed. Thank you, Noah, again for joining me.
Thank you
Please
for hosting.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
Gotta like this video.
It's nice to have actually somebody to talk to about these things.
I'm not even here.
Yeah, because you're looking at me.
Plot twist, it's FaceTime. Where's the camera? There's the camera. It's FaceTime.
People who have watched my stream know that that's my little background chakra thing in the back. So, but all right.
I stole it.
Next time on High and Logical Z.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Nickelback.
No.
Look at this photograph.
No.